weeks and counting. Thanks for stopping in. SEC Press Pass. Lisa Cornwell, RJ Hawk here in studio. Joining us from Orlando, Florida, John Cooper, co-founder Saturday Down South.
John, I tell you, big time of the year right now for Saturday Down South is SEC football getting ready to happen, and boy, everybody's ready right now.
Yeah, it really is. We've been kicking things into high gear here a month before the season, and man, we're really excited to see some toe on leather and get this thing kicked off this year for 2012.
Talking about John's top 5 storylines headed into the 2012 season. Let's start with number 5, John, replacing Tyrann Mathieu, starting on special teams.
Yeah, it's a big deal, especially on special teams. He had such an impact on his team last year, especially in 2 games. If you think about the SEC championship game, Georgia had all the momentum in the first half. And then also in the Arkansas game, Arkansas was up a touchdown, and Tyrann Mathieu basically flipped all the momentum, and he took back a punt return for a touchdown. So, yeah, it's a big deal. I think Les Miles has said he's going to plug in wide receiver sophomore Odell Beckham, and which is a dynamic athlete in itself, but certainly for momentum issues, you know, it's going to be tough replacing Mathieu. He just had the knack to make the big play when his team needed it the most.
Mathieu, not just a devastating force for this LSU football team on special teams, but also on the defensive side of the ball. You look at it, interceptions last season, 2 for 16 yards, but the big number, the fumble returns, they're going to miss him defensively as well, right?
Yeah, they sure are. I mean, think about it, LSU is already replacing 2 out of the 4 in the secondary with fellow safety returner Eric Reed is back. Now he's the only one back there in that secondary, so they're pretty vulnerable back there right now. They're going to have 2 freshmen fill in for him, and Jalen Collins and Jalen Mills, and they're battling it out right now. And it's definitely going to see, you know, how this secondary takes shape. It's going to be interesting.
Okay, John, let's talk about the defending national champion, Alabama. They're losing 7 key guys on that defensive side of the football. Just talk about how they're really going to just reload rather than replace.
Well, certainly when you have a guy like Nick Saban coaching your defense, you definitely have the best opportunity to, quote, reload. It's tough for any team to reload with that much talent that they lost in the NFL draft. You know, players like Mark Barron, Dre Kirkpatrick, Daquan Menzie, and then the linebackers, they're replacing a lot of talent. They're going to be breaking in some younger guys in the secondary. When you got Nick Saban at the helm, you know, you always have a good opportunity. He's recruited great talent, and he's going to put that talent and develop them and put them in the best situation to succeed on the field.
John, as always, the SEC is loaded with offensive talent in the backfield, but a lot of these guys are coming back from injury. Marcus Lattimore, Niall Davis, Christine Michael down at A&M, Eddie Lacy. How do you see these guys coming back from the injuries off last season?
Well, certainly, you know, that's a big question mark right now, especially for their teams and in the SEC itself. I mean, we're primarily a downhill running game, power running game league. And it presents some question marks with these guys coming back returning from injury, with Lattimore and the ACL injury, and then Christine Michael and the ACL injury as well as Niall Davis. I mean, there's a lot of question marks for these teams, but hopefully they'll get back to rare form and keep the SEC on top in the running game.
Boy, a lot of news with the Arkansas Razorbacks over the offseason, and besides the coaching differences and things that are going on there, let's talk about the offense and defense. We know that the offense is always they got the firepower, but the defense always seems to struggle. I believe 47th overall. Just talk about what they need to do to be better defensively.
Well, you know, that's always the question mark when you're talking about Arkansas. Obviously, you mentioned it, the offense is second to none. They're probably going to put up a lot of points this year. But what we really want to see and what I really want to see is this defense take a step forward. If Arkansas wants to win the West, I mean, let's face it, the defense is going to have to win a couple of games for them this year, starting with the 2 big ones that come to Fayetteville there with LSU and Bama. So, you know, they made a couple personnel changes. They moved the defensive end Tanarius Wright there, linebacker. He combines with Alonzo Highsmith to give that linebacking corps some pretty good firepower, and they have some very good defensive tackles that kind of anchors them as well, and a decent secondary too, that's pretty deep. So, you know, if Arkansas wants to take a step forward as a team, the defense is going to have to take a step forward with them.
Okay, John, I have to admit your #1 storyline heading into the fall kind of surprised me a little bit, that being Zach Mettenberger taking over the quarterback position at LSU, and this is why. Last season, LSU finished 106th passing offense in the FBS, yet still just won about every game except for obviously the national title game. Why is Mettenberger's performance, with all of these running backs returning, why is his offensive performance so important this season?
Well, it was funny. We had a discussion there the other night with the Saturday Down South crew. We were discussing who's the most important guy in the SEC this year, not just to their team, but to the league itself. And obviously, you got national title implications on the line. So obviously, Zach Mettenberger is a huge part of that. You know, he's got a big arm. If you look at it, LSU, I believe they scored an average of 38 points a game last year, something crazy for a minimal passing offense of what they had. But you look at the depth, they returned 4 out of 5 guys on the offensive line. They returned a 4-headed running back monster, the second to none in college football, really. And some guys at wide receiver who can make some plays. I mean, Zach Mettenberger doesn't have to be, you know, he doesn't have to be Tyler Wilson. He doesn't have to be the Matt Barkley. He can be Zach Mettenberger, give this offense a downfield threat, be able to stretch the field so the defense can't, you know, stack the box against this running game. He's stepping in the perfect situation, not only in the SEC, but in the rest of the country as well. And, you know, and he just has to put up some decent numbers with the ability to stretch the field with his big arm. And I think he has that ability, and we're going to find out.
4-headed monster, referring to the offensive backfield. John, that's really good. I have no doubt that RJ is going to steal that one from you, though.
I will use that at some point this year, I promise.
He is John Cooper, Saturday Down South. You can follow him on Twitter at JohnSDS. John, thanks a lot for the time. We look forward to having you with us all season.